This is now the second time I'm sharing this with humans, and I realized that by me being vulnerable and actually sharing the most raw form of my thoughts, literally a journal entry that I had written the morning with no intention of ever sharing it with anyone, let alone a room full of people I had never met before, I created this ripple effect of people being able to connect in their shared human suffering, and therefore created a space where people can feel less alone. Welcome back to the Recalibrate Podcast, a series of conversations and ideas that connect us more deeply to other humans and therefore ourselves. Each episode is designed to help you reflect, reconnect, and feel inspired to make positive change on your path towards a more purposeful life. I am so excited to be here with you all today in your earbuds. I come to you with many a beverage. I have, first off, a coffee, of course, made by my baby Bambino espresso machine. This cup is actually the cutest cup ever. If you're watching the video, I'm obsessed. This is one of my favorite cups of all time. Almond milk latte is my go-to bevy. And then, of course, we have to bring some warmth. This is warm lemon water that I've got going on, and then just a normal water. But I always have to have 3 beverages at all times. I just feel like my best self when that is the case. But today is a very special episode. I feel like over the past 4 months, I have completely changed my entire life, but yet I feel more like myself than ever. So much has changed, but at my core, I feel this sense of deep inner peace and knowing that maybe for the first time ever in my life, I feel actually content with where I'm at. I feel excited about what's coming next, but I'm not feeling urgent about what's coming next. Like I have to reach for the next thing or accomplish the next thing. I feel like wherever I'm at in the moment, I'm able to actually sit with and feel like it's enough. And the things that I'm doing in my life are coming out of a place of abundance rather than me reaching for something or feeling like I need to do something in order to be worthy. Truly, I feel happier than I've ever been, but that's not even the best feeling. The best feeling is what I describe as this feeling of homecoming, the ability to simply be able to coexist with all the parts of myself without any expectation, without any judgment. I think the reason why this happiness and contentment I have currently feels so good is because it's coming after a period of being with the depths of myself and feeling so stuck and depressed and trapped. I recently was describing the shift I've had to one of my friends, John, and he immediately asked me, as he curiously does, and said, "What changed? How did you get from there to here?" And when he first asked, I truthfully had no idea how to communicate what I had felt. Because in that moment, it felt like the change had happened overnight. I was there and now I'm here. Everything had stayed the same for so long, but now everything was completely different. After that conversation, I sat down the next morning to journal, which I hadn't done in so long. Journaling is a super important practice to me, but during this period over the summer, I completely fell off of it and I hadn't taken the time to really integrate what I was feeling. So that morning, I had sat down to journal and words just absolutely poured out of me. I literally could not stop journaling. I think I sat there for an hour, just sitting there, letting the words flow through me, really just uncovering the journey of where I had been and how I got to the place that I was at now. And I remember it was pouring rain and I had plans that day to go to a friend's birthday party and go to one of my friend's apartments and spend some time catching up with her. So I'll set the scene for you. I go to my friend David's birthday party. He is incredible. He hosts these amazing live podcast events a few times a month. And for his birthday, he had an open mic party where people could share literally anything, a story, a grocery list, a half-written note that you get the picture. And I went into this event with nothing on my mind to share. I had just went to my friend Emily's to have tea and we had the most cozy, lovely morning. And for some reason, I had my journal with me, which I normally don't take when I have plans. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to people's stories and I just feel like absolutely called to share what I had journaled. And this is so unlike me. Like if you know me or you've listened to other episodes, I've said Growing up, public speaking was my absolute worst fear. Like if I had a book report or something in school, I would literally stay up the entire night because I was so scared of sharing in this way or being perceived in this way. But something just came up in me to share what I had written. And I turned to my friend Emily. I look at her and I was like, I think I'm going to share my journal entry that I had written this morning. And she was like, yeah, you have to. You should definitely share that. And then as soon as I said that, I got scared immediately. I was like, "Oh, no, I can't share that. It's way too personal." I had never intended to share it with anyone. But then I had a moment where I thought about how I want to show up as a person and how I want to show up in this world. And I truly, truly have this belief that the difficult feelings that we see as the most isolating are actually the ones that create the most connection because those are the feelings that create this shared human experience. And with that in mind, I took a deep breath. I got my journal, which I have right here, and I started sharing to this room full of people that I had literally never met before. It was all strangers besides like maybe one or two people that I had met from these events. And I'll share with you. So for the second time, sharing the insides of my brains as I do on this podcast and give you a little overview of what I wrote. I have my journal here, but I also typed it so that I didn't have to keep looking down. So I'll read it from my computer, but she's in this bad book. All right, we're going to dive in, maybe take a sip of whatever you've got going on over there. Choose from your one of three beverages. Okay. There was a point in time not too long ago that I felt like things would never get better, that how I was feeling was permanent, that I truly believed that I wasn't worthy. I was repeating the same cycles over and over again and expecting a different outcome. I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. I felt broken. I felt unlovable because I didn't love myself. Some time has passed since then, and I truly feel happier and more me than I ever have before. I went from a period of struggling to get out of bed because I was so depressed to not being able to sleep because I'm so excited about the life that I'm building. I absolutely love the life that I'm currently living. I feel like I'm living in alignment with who I am and my values. I'm attracting so many incredible opportunities and humans into my life. It's truly amazing what happens when you stop having resistance to your life and start letting it unfold. When you visualize that something is possible and put yourself in spaces for it to happen. When you take action. When you have confidence in yourself. When you trust in yourself. When you actually believe in your potential. When you respect and love yourself enough to walk away from the people and experiences that aren't serving you. When you start to understand your inherent worth. When you actually get so rooted in your foundation that you create an unbreakable bond with yourself, one where you know that no matter what, you won't abandon the person that you are. Now, what changed, you might ask, as my friend John did the previous day? What changed was I broke patterns and cycles that were keeping me stuck, that were keeping me small. I put in the fucking work. I found more gratitude for all of the little things in my life. I spent more time with people that made me feel like me. When I forgot who I was, I let other people remind me. I showed up as my authentic self without worrying about how I would be received. I sat with myself when it was uncomfortable. I let myself simply exist exactly as I am. I let go of the rigidity and the perceived control and found actual freedom. I listened more to others, but also myself. I spent time healing my inner child to allow myself to look at life with more awe and more curiosity. I stopped taking things so seriously and approached situations and experiences, keeping their impermanence in mind. I realized things didn't need to be so hard, that actually, maybe it could just be easy. I gave myself the permission to change. This is now the second time I'm sharing this with humans. And I realized that by me being vulnerable and actually sharing the most raw form of my thoughts, literally a journal entry that I had written the morning with no intention of ever sharing it with anyone, let alone a room full of people I had never met before. I created this ripple effect of people being able to connect in their shared human suffering and therefore created a space where people can feel less alone. When we have these intense feelings, at least for me, we often feel like we're so alone in what we're experiencing, that we're the only ones that have ever experienced it, that something is wrong with us. And this rhetoric that we tell ourselves creates shame. And then this shame creates a loop of isolation because we feel like we can't talk about how we're actually feeling with others. From this experience, I realized two things. One, these emotions are deeply, deeply human. Even though your experience is completely unique, the emotions that you have tied to those experiences are shared amongst us all. Secondly, these periods of our life are so impermanent. They don't last forever, even when it feels like they will. The way that I started thinking about these periods of my life were as contraction and expansion. And I've been playing around with this idea of contraction and expansion and how we flow from one period to the next quite unknowingly. The periods of contraction feel like they'll last forever. You ask yourself questions like, why do I feel stuck? Why do I feel like I'm repeating the same patterns? Why do I feel at a standstill in all of these different facets of my life? But in actuality, those periods of contraction, those times in your life where we have existential crisis about who we are and what we should be doing and feel like nothing is changing, are actually the most integral periods for change, for growth. And on this theme, I am always reminded of this quote, which is, the day you plant the seeds is never the same day you eat the fruit. Day after day, we're too zoomed in to see what's occurring as it's occurring. And then suddenly, it's time to harvest. With a new perspective, we shift out of this contractive state of standstill into a period where life feels limitless and buzzy. We have endless potential and momentum, and everything makes sense again. It's funny how quickly we forget the impermanence of emotions and feel as though one state or the other will last forever, when in reality, we will likely oscillate between these two for the entirety of our short existence on this earth. If this is familiar to you, this piece, I ended up theming my yoga classes and actually an entire retreat for my community self-hug club around this idea of contraction and expansion. And I ended up writing this piece on my Substack to reflect on this period, just so I could keep it as a little reminder for myself. Because even though I'm in this state right now where I'm able to look at this from an objective perspective, I know there will be a time, maybe very soon, when I completely forget all of this and need my own little wisdom. So I'll leave you with this, but wherever you're at right now, whether you are also having this feeling of homecoming and expansion, or maybe you're having a feeling like you want to crawl out of your own skin, I've been there and I promise you it does not last forever. These periods can feel so uncomfortable, but I truly believe that everything happens in perfect order, exactly as it's supposed to. The most important thing is to sit with yourself, acknowledge how you're feeling, and maybe even notice where you're abandoning yourself in the midst of it all. Come back to this practice of coming home to yourself, of being in community and letting yourself receive all of the love that's around you and have patience for what's to come. I saw this quote that said, have patience for all things, but most of all, yourself. And that really resonated with me. I'll leave you with a quote from this book, Language and Thought and Action, before we close out, that said, people need reassurance that others are just like themselves. And that is something that I always hope to do with Recalibrate, give you the reassurance that you are not alone in whatever you are going through. If you've been with me since the OG solo days, thank you so much for being here. And I'm so excited to have this fresh start with Recalibrate. We have so many amazing, exciting episodes with incredible guests coming your way. So make sure to follow wherever you listen so you get notified of the latest conversation, and head to recalibrate.podcast on Instagram if you want to chat on anything that's coming up for you. My DMs are always open, and I love hearing from you. Also, before I go, my little Uber driver plug. If you liked this episode and you want to help me get it out to more people, give it a 5-star rating wherever you listen to it and share it with a friend. I would really appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day, afternoon, night, whenever you're listening to this. I love you very much, and I will see you next time.